Content warning, this episode contains references to sexual assault and suicide. I was actually 16, I think, when I went to my first drag show, which was weird because it was at this place in, like, downtown Dayton, Ohio. It was 2 stories, and on the bottom floor, they would have live bands playing, and on the top floor, it would be, like, goth night, dance party, with, I want to say it was, like, every 45 minutes to an hour, they would stop playing the music and a drag queen would come out and perform.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so it was cool because I went there originally for their goth night, but then I got to meet all these wonderful drag queens, and I guess I didn't understand the sense of humor at the time, because one of the drag queens would come out and be like, oh yeah, Betty's back there sucking dicks in the changing room, and like, you know, then Betty would come out and be like, well, Sandra's back there giving them hand jobs, I figured, you know, whatever. And at the time I was like, oh, these drag queens are so mean to each other. Why do they say this kind of stuff? But, like, now I understand, you know, like, but it was really fun because sometimes the drag queens would come out and dance with us to, like, Bauhaus or whatever. Whatever the fuck we were listening to.
Shriek Back, Nemesis.
Yeah.
That is the goth club song. Man, we had, like, in Oklahoma City, there was the rec room. And not rec like REC, but, like, you know, you got in a car wreck. Like,
yeah.
That's where goth night was. That's where the drag queens were. That's where they let
where
kids...
all the cool shit happens, right?
Yeah, well, they let the kids that were under 18 into that place.
Yeah, this place in Ohio was the same way, because you could get in if you were 16. They just had to put the thing on your hand showing that you can't get alcohol.
They did, like, that same thing at the rec room. But no, that's the first time that I got to experience, you know, drag in person. And whenever people were telling me about drag queens, when I was in the 6th grade... this girl named Laura McCarthy was telling me about...
A lot happened in 6th grade, didn't it?
A lot happened in 6th grade.
Okay.
But she told me about RuPaul, honestly, because, like, I didn't know anything about drag. But it's that song, you know, Supermodel World.
Yeah.
Cover girl, work it girl. And so I had no idea what drag was about, anything like that. And she just showed me RuPaul. I'm like, okay. I was like, I'm taking it at face value. I'm like, okay, someone just singing a song. But when I figured out RuPaul was a drag queen and what drag was and what went into drag, and I was just like, what? It was so fucking cool. So I finally got to experience drag in person when I was like in the 8th grade, you know, at the rec room. And that was just so, I felt in over my head, you know, because I thought that I was, you know, fucking 13, 14. And I was like, oh, shit, I already know things about things. But I was just like, whoa, I felt like culture shock, honestly. Yeah. I just had never been to an event with someone that was dressed so fucking spectacularly.
Oh, I was obsessed with these fucking queens. Don't get me wrong. Like, from that moment on, I was like... I just wanted to go hang out with the fucking drag queens. But they were not... really that spectacular. These were the drag queens you would get out of the dumpster of the dollar store down the street, you know? But hey, they were doing their thing. They needed somewhere to perform, and somehow they got to perform at the goth night.
Yeah, so for me, what it was...
And they were very nice, too.
I had never seen drag makeup like that before.
Yeah.
Like, my only experience with makeup was, you know, seeing with, you know, the girls my age at school were trying to do what my mom and what my aunties did. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, powwow makeup, you know, whenever you put the paint on your face, you know, with your regalia, you know, to go dance, you know, that was my only experience. Oh, and Halloween.
Yeah.
But, you know, but to see, like, artfully done, like, you know, like eyebrows that were like fucking like cutting across the face like fucking hatchets.
Yeah.
And fucking, you know, lips that looked like, you know, stung by bumblebees. And fucking, you know, just eyelashes, you know, out to like 5 feet in front of you. You know, that was just
like
so...
fingers.
Everything was just so like exaggerated and ridiculous. And just like the whole attitude, you know, of the performance was just like... Because I was sitting at a table looking up, you know, at these towering drag queens on stage. So they seemed like, you know, like fucking demi-deities, you know.
Yeah,
I was like, this is
That's
so
exactly
cool.
how I felt, except these drag queens were wearing trash bags.
But that's around the time that my mom had introduced me to Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. That was my first exposure to, what's his name? You know, fucking...
Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving has like this face, you know, whenever he like looks angry or whenever he's looking intense. There was like that montage in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert where they're playing like, finally it's happened to me. Right. But he has like this little like lizard coat thing. It looks like the Jurassic Park, you know, the dinosaur that spits the acid.
Yeah.
It looks like one of those little like lizard frills, but it's just like a little coat. So he like puts up his little lizard frill, but the face he's making, it's just like that super intense, but that paired with the makeup, you know, the attitude, even though they're just lip syncing to this fucking song, I was just like, you know, like 12, 13-year-old me was just like, holy fuck. It's like, people do this. Because whenever I was a little kid, I would fucking dance around. I would take a little boombox. I would go outside and I'd just go dance.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a little kid, people did that on my street when I lived in Pawnee. And then when I moved to like Stillwater and like, you know, Norman, like nobody did that. I just felt like an outsider, but I'd still fucking go do that shit. And still, people just, you know, if you're dancing around, you know, to a boombox somewhere, you know, I mean, it's got to be some Tone Loc or some rap or some shit. Yeah. But I was dancing around all kinds of crazy shows, putting on CNC Music Factory, you know, like, everybody dance now, you know, like fucking Belle Biv DeVoe and shit. Yeah. You know, I was just dancing whatever the fuck I wanted to dance to, and people were like, oh, don't go dance with that gym boy, all you're doing some crazy shit. But I felt vindicated, you know, after like discovering what drag was, because it like made me feel like I didn't have to, you know, there was always going to be somebody out there that was into what the fuck I was doing, what I was about. Yes. And I didn't even have to fucking fuck with those, you know, closed-minded, small perspective people that, you know, grew up with me on my street, you know? I mean, there's a bigger and badder ass fucking world out there. And I'm really thankful to fucking Hugo Weaving and to the drag queens at the Rec Room. It made me feel like I wasn't such a sore thumb. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx.
My name is Sabrina, and I have the screaming, tortured souls of my enemies in my pants.
My name is Matt, and I have the slithering limbs of arcane deities in my pants.
And this is
Sumo Punx!
And this is part 2 of our 2-part episode on the intersection of the queer community and the sumo community. When we last left off, our guests were expressing their utter alarm at the recent remarks made by USSF trustee Kelly Knighting, where he stated he, quote, strives for a queer-free world, as well as other hateful remarks he's made online over the years. Because of the remarks made by this trustee, queer sumotori are starting to feel unsafe and concerned for their future for the first time ever in the otherwise very welcoming and accepting U.S. sumo community. When we left off, we still had yet to hear from newly elected trustee Christina Griffin-Jones on her perspective on this situation, the type of damage it could do to the queer community, and what sorts of actions can be taken to stamp out queer phobia within the USSF. So we'll start this episode discussing the matter further with her, and then we'll once again hear from all of our guests to discuss what they think the future holds for queer folks in sumo across the world.
He used the words perverts to talk about queer people in sport, which is something that allows homophobia and queerphobia to really fester and grow, because people believe that because we're a part of the queer community that we don't deserve safety. That we're okay with inappropriate relationships and stuff like that, and that's not true. But
Yeah.
it's a part of this whole thing of like, in order for rape culture to survive, it has to be about moving the spotlight away from the predator. And but the predator, and predators exist on, all walks of life. But it's
Yeah.
like this moment where like age old queer phobia is now, it's like we have to protect
It's
our
a
kids.
moral panic, and it comes in
Yeah.
cycles.
And then what it also does is a disservice to like to survivors who we are out here saying, bro, we teaching our kids about stranger danger when we need to be teaching our kids about the ways that people that we know will groom us,
That
isolate you, and this abuse is able to happen in plain sight because like survivors aren't believed. People aren't believing people when they say for the first time, yo, I'm being hurt by this person. It's like, oh
yeah.
no, this person is so likable.
And the people that everyone is being convinced to focus on instead are like trans women just trying to take a pee. The term moral panic was coined by British sociologist Stanley Cohen in 1972, though moral panics have existed throughout history. A moral panic is a widely held false perception or fear that a group of people or a cultural movement are threatening the safety, values, interests, or well-being of society, which often spurs vigilante action against innocent people. Think Salem witch trials, or the widespread panic in the 1980s about dark and sinister messages hidden in popular music. The US is currently going through a major moral panic over the visibility and role of LGBTQIA+ people, especially trans people, within our society. This was, unfortunately, to be expected. Many have observed over the last century that a major backlash typically follows social progress for marginalized groups. After the major win for marriage equality rights in 2015, queer-phobic religious and political leaders doubled down, and now anti-queer activists have started recycling old malicious myths about queer people secretly being child predators. It's ridiculous that this has to be explained again, but here goes. Crime statistics show that 93% of perpetrators of child sexual abuse are people the child already knows and trusts, like a family member, church leader, babysitter, or friend of the family. Only 7% are strangers. But the bigots aren't going to let a silly thing like facts get in their way. And as a result, between 2021 and 2022, the FBI's annual crime report showed an alarming 14% increase in hate crimes based on sexual orientation and a 33% increase in hate crimes based on gender identity, both hitting record highs. This latest cycle of anti-queer propaganda is not only hurting queer people, it's also hurting kids by misdirecting people's attention toward pride parades and drag queens promoting literacy instead of the creepy uncle or mom's sleazy boyfriend they should be focusing on, which just makes it more likely the victims don't receive any help until it's too late.
But then it's like a big part of the things that like predators get away with shit is because people who knew them and didn't know the extent to their harm didn't do anything sooner, and they're overcome with shame. I think we're at a time in the Federation, and I also take like personal responsibility with being on the board of trustees now. Is like we are gonna have the evidence. We have the evidence. It's important for us to act and not to sit and not for anybody to sit in shame no more about what they've known and what they haven't acted on.
Yeah.
Another thing that really like worries me is when people are like, oh, isn't it so nice how we can believe different things and we can work together? Now,
Or I
I
don't
think
get involved in politics.
that's
Yeah.
very much that's you pushing away responsibility. Like we're
Dude,
talking
who
about
was
people's
it who had the...
humanity.
Exactly.
Yeah, who was it that had... I want to say it was Audre Lorde, who said the personal is political.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Like, you may say, I don't want to be a part of,
Yeah.
I don't want to get into these political discussions.
Sabrina.
This is shit that affects people's personal fucking lives.
And Sabrina, I've been on so many boards where people have like come at me and been like, well, Christina, you have to be professional here. You can't be personal. But I'm like, you don't understand, like the constituency I represent, that's my business. And my constituency takes this shit personal. And so I'm gonna bring it. But also that is upholding, not feeling things, is upholding the patriarchy, and it's upholding white supremacy. Mm-hmm. We see over and over again times when great terror has happened. People have been like, I was just doing my job. I felt bad about it, but I was just doing my job. You know, people are always like, you know, don't bring personal stuff into it. But, you know, dare I say, you know, people like Kelly Knighting have been able to bring personal into it. And it's, you know, and it's just like, yo, a person like that, having somebody's sumo career in their hands, like the trans policy, it has to go before the board. So you can count on somebody who's creating things like this. You can count on them not being able to vote in favor of a trans athlete being able to participate in the competition. And how do you get good? You have to not only come to practice as an athlete, you also have to do competitions. Mm-hmm. And then too, so it's his vote for whether a trans person can or cannot participate in nationals. Like, it doesn't sound like he can take the personal out of anything. And he hasn't been, you know, a thing that I think is overwhelming. And at the same time, like, I think gets me fired up, is that in the sumo community, I have relationship with people who have given me leadership, and count on me to do something and to do a lot of things. And then too, like, feel okay letting me know when I fucked up, you know, or when I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, right? And I'm really, just really thankful for that. Like no one is, I think. Like the thing with Kelly Knighting, right? People will be tempted to be like, oh man, if they call out Kelly, then I have to be careful about that post I put online back in 2005. Like, there's a post, I keep all my shit on my social media, and you can go on my social media, and there's a post where what is it? It was a protest I was at, and a news person, you know, it was before I was out about being bi, or before I knew I was bi. This news person saw that I was queer as fuck, and they put like queer organizer Christina Griffin-Jones, and I was like, this whole post, I'm like, you know what? Please remove my picture. You know, I want to give space for queer organizers. I'm not queer, you know, And but it was like, yo, like, the thing is, it's not accountability isn't about a witch hunt. It's not that. Accountability is about like seeing how somebody's actions don't align with what you need them to do. And you know what? Like, yeah, if you are out here online hurting people like Kelly did, all right, your ass deserved to get found out. Yeah. But also, like, if you do get found out, what's your response? You know, what are you committing? And then too, like, maybe you shouldn't be representing people.
Yeah, it's and about asking people if this is the person they really want to be. That's what accountability is. That's what it means to me, is like, especially for like people who you do care about, but for everyone in general, just saying, hey, this thing that you're doing is harmful. Think about this, and think about whether or not this is something you really want to be doing. Think about whether this is the result that you want this behavior to have, you know, and what that says about you as a person and how you fit into this community.
Yeah. And then people who you have harmed, them letting you know if this is satisfactory for me, I want all the information and evidence, and I want the things that were heard too. And I want to do it in a way that protects folks who, if people are like, this is what I heard, but I don't want to be in it, or this is what I heard, I have to check with the person who was harmed. Whatever, we can do all that. Kelly knighting is harming the past, present, and future, not only of queer sumotoris, also sumotoris who are not queer and who identify as women. He said disparaging comments about women all the time, and also like non-white sumotoris. Mm-hmm. And people need to. This cat has a manifesto that he's using to inform the moves that he makes, and that's troubling to me in all my identities.
Yeah.
What Christina is talking about here is a book that Knighting wrote in 2023 about the fringe political party he's affiliated with, the Independent American Party, in which he explicitly describes discrimination as a, quote, God-given right.
So there have been people who have come out and said that Kelly Knighting is no longer welcome at their events.
Yes.
And there have also been people that have come out and said that if the board does anything less than kicking him out, that's it. They're giving up their membership. They're quitting sumo. They're not participating anymore.
Yeah.
What are your feelings on that? And the reaction that people have had, and what might happen to the Federation?
Yeah. So I am a advocate for union organizing through and through. And I believe that power concedes nothing. You have to take. So I appreciate the membership, the same membership that voted me to be trustee, saying that if we as a trustee body do not act in a way that is in alignment with how folks feel like we should be acting, girl, I'm gonna give up my membership too. I'm joining the people. Like, my whole life has been about folks organizing and building power together. And I love that the membership is giving that to the board of trustees and being like, look, if you all don't do this, this is what y'all can count on. And I'll be right alongside the membership. I feel like USSF isn't anything without its membership. So I feel like folks saying like, I'm going to give up my membership if Kelly is not held accountable, if he's not removed. But members, we should not be scared of being people of our word. And it's important that you exercise that type of power to show people the power you have. Folks can count on me and other folks on the board to do the right thing. And I'm going to be somebody that's constantly inviting Kelly to leave, to resign. And also I will. And also like,
I can just imagine it, like every time you see him, it's like, oh, hey Kelly, when are you leaving?
Yeah.
You got your resignation paperwork handy?
That vibe.
Oh, look, I have a resignation letter right here. Just sign right there.
Sign at the bottom.
That vibe, for real. And I think that if we misstep so bad as board of trustees, we don't deserve people's membership. And the sumo community that we've done a great job in defining, like literally at the soul of all of our identities, is like being in a body that nobody stood up for, being in an identity that nobody stood up for. And we asked for help, and that help was turned back with, shut the fuck up. Just keep going along with it. Yeah, no, I think a lot of us have found this sport because we wanted something different. We wanted something new. We wanted something where we could be all of ourselves and that be honored. And I take that promise from the membership seriously. And I'm gonna make sure that my vote aligns with that promise. Like, I don't want our membership to do that, but our membership should do that if we don't do what we're supposed to.
Right. I would really hate to see basically this just all blows over without getting resolved, and people start to leave, and then all of those chuds, all these like really horrible people are going to see this and be like, oh, well, this dude got away with, having these really violent views. And so this is a safe space for me now, too, because, I also hate queer people or whoever. And so let's go fill up the Sumo Federation with a bunch of hateful people because that looks like a safe space for them now,
Yeah. And
so that would suck because what we have right now is like so beautiful, except for like just these couple of things.
But it's important that like we always remember that chant. What is it? Ain't no power like the power of people, because the power
of the people don't stop.
Say what, right? and it's that we like nothing outside of our power, our work, make the sumo community what it is. And whether it's under USSF or is under the queer sumo wrestlers welcome and fat bodies united iteration, like wherever we are together, that's where the power is, and that's where US Sumo is. And I know, I have all faith in us, because I feel really honored that like y'all voted all of us in, and things are obviously changed in the first meeting. But it's important, right, that people know that like when you get elected folks in, that's not the end. Holding them accountable is a part of that, and remembering and reminding them where the power is always from is important. Yeah, y'all like us, but if we do something fucked up, y'all should punish us. And it also is, again, for me, I'm like, we're not asking y'all. The membership is not asking for something that is not overdue.
Exactly.
So it's like with any organizing campaign, when workers are organizing and the boss calls your bluff, that's when you strike. And you show the boss that you were real about what you were saying, and then the boss changes. And if something like that has to happen, you gotta do it.
If it has to happen, then it'll happen. And then what are they gonna do?
Yeah, we're gonna try to get everybody back.
Right. I don't know though, because this like fat positive super queer federation you were talking about, that sounds pretty cool. Hopefully we can turn the current federation into that instead of having to make a different one. But no, that sounds pretty dope to me.
So. And it of course, it's more labor to recreate something, but the thing is that the membership has shown their power. Yeah, the membership has shown our power and what we're able to do, and that we're people of our word. And so it would be unfortunate if the body that y'all got in, that we got in, didn't do what we're supposed to do, and that'll just be a nice wake up call for us to see. Yeah. That's why I go so hard. Like, it's a solidarity thing. Like he's mean and nasty and terrible to everyone.
Like, if he gets away with saying these things about queer folks, is that going to embolden him to, do the same? Like, maybe he's going to start pushing for, let's be like pro sumo and not have women in amateur sumo anymore. Or some stupid shit like that.
Oh my gosh, yes. And it's just, no. Yeah. What you're saying is exactly, and I think that's why, that's why trustees like me are really, really passionate and really clear about the sumo that we're trying to build for the future, and the sumo that exists now, and even the sumo in the past. Like, there's no place for this cat.
Despite recent controversies like this, the queer community has really come a long way in fighting for their rights and acceptance. Yes, there is still work to be done, especially in the realm of sports, but it's nice to look back over the past century or so and see how we went from having athletes' lives ruined if someone outed them, to modern Olympic teams boasting dozens of out and proud LGBTQ members. I wanted to leave our guests on a more positive note, so I asked Dustin, James, Kellyanne, Temple, and Christina what they think the future holds for queer folks in sumo.
Well, there have been rumors going around in the pro scenes of a few Rikishi who may or may not be LGBT. I would love to see these rumors be true, only because I want to see top people flying the flags of LGBT people, essentially, if I want to talk rhetorically. Um, I would love to see that. Whether the federation that oversees Omozumo is willing to accept that or not, they're going to have to eventually. It's going to happen.
Yep.
Whether they like it or not, one day they'll be gone, and one day someone will step in who doesn't care. And then we will see LGBT Omozumo. But until that day, I hope someone will eventually step forward and be like, hey, this is we have wrestlers that are gay, and we need to be seen.
Someone we know in Japan did actually verify there are at least 3 that they know of.
Yeah.
But
I hope to one day see them come out, but I know that if they do come out, that's going to be the end of their career, unfortunately.
Or maybe post-retirement, we'll find out. Or
yeah,
something.
Post-retirement. Yeah, that would probably be the safest option for Rikishi.
Yeah.
Well, you guys ever heard of this person called Kellyanne Ball?
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you've ever heard of her. But, I think she's, look at her, killing it, I think we're going to continue to kill it, man. She's the gold standard, and, I think that means it's beyond acceptance into the realm of excellence, and just at all levels, casual or, at the highest level, we're here and we ain't going anywhere, more and more. That's how I feel about it.
I think queer folks are right now are completely welcome in sumo specifically, and I think it's only going to become a more welcoming space as the world becomes more open in general. And then, like I said earlier, I'm like, a lot of the international girls are also part of the queer community. There's a lot of us out there, and I think I'm more excited about women's sports than I am about like seeing more queer people in sports, because I'm just like, the women need more love too.
Yeah.
But and then like I'm looking at all these women's teams out there, and they're full of queer folk. Every single women's team without all the major leagues are full of queer folk, and I'm like, yes.
It's like a 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah.
One of the things that is often talked about in the realm of sumo is the lack of participation from women and what we could do to get more women involved. This is a multifaceted issue, which has multiple explanations and solutions, but one important aspect of it also appears to be homophobic stereotypes about women in sports. Dozens of studies have shown that straight and closeted women are more likely to avoid sports altogether, especially sports that are seen as being more masculine, due to fear of being labeled a lesbian by their peers. It also shows that women who do participate in sports often find themselves spending extra time and energy on what's called identity management. Essentially, this means that straight women will focus more on performing femininity to prove their participation in sports has nothing to do with their sexuality or gender identity. Queer women also experience this on many levels, whether it's trying not to be outed when they're not ready, or attempting to combat how their participation is used as validation for the stereotype. This added distraction and stress can have many negative outcomes, including poor performance and even injury.
And then I would hope that the men feel more comfortable, because we know there are queer folk out there. They don't feel comfortable coming out yet and being open in those spaces. But I don't know. I think it's good. I think we can only go up from here, honestly.
It's always like a back and forth. There's always progress that's made and then backlash, and then more progress and then backlash. And it's like, it seems to always be moving forward. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but at least it's still majority forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's true about everything in amateur sumo. We're slowly moving forward.
That's the whole thing with sumo. You got to keep moving forward, right?
Yeah. Forward momentum.
I see a future where we're able to, well, hopefully a future where we're able to be more outspoken about being queer in sumo. There are a lot of us, but of course, relatively, not necessarily. And if we're able to be more outspoken about our place in amateur sumo, it will ideally inspire other queer people who maybe are nervous about, like, this very ancient sport with very traditional roots. It can be nerve-wracking to try to break into that without an example to look to. So hopefully, especially even in this instance, a bunch of queer amateur sumo wrestlers like making a fuss about this will hopefully send a message that amateur sumo largely, minus a couple of assholes, amateur sumo is a very open and welcoming and accepting environment that we can thrive in and be safe in. So hopefully we can continue to thrive and be safe in this community. I definitely am excited to, as far as I know, I guess I don't know, but like I don't really ever see any other like trans people doing amateur sumo, and I'm hoping to even personally be an example in that regard, sort of banging the drum. Like, you can also be trans and do sumo. Get in here, you guys.
I'm happy to inform you that Texas is a leader once again in in all things sumo, as we actually have had some pretty fantastic trans sumotori. There was Trixie from it was Dark Circle, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Adora and Mighty Eagle.
Adora from Mighty Eagle as well.
Hell
Yes.
yeah.
She, the last Consulates Cup, she actually did, because there was a lot of kids that wanted to participate. So Adora taught the kids, like basic Tachiai and Oshizumo, and got them all tied in little Mawashis. And then, yeah, so she did like the junior division. That was really fucking cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I guess like I said, it's like I guess I just don't know because despite what the transphobes say, you cannot always tell.
yeah, true. I and many others were quite pleased with the results of the recent trustee elections that put Christina and another new trustee, Karen Zabel, on the board. As welcoming and wholesome as the U.S. sumo community is, most feel there's a lot of aspects of the U.S. Federation that could be improved. And the new board members don't plan on stopping with this one bad apple. For example, after the current mission is complete, Christina plans on tackling the Federation's trans athlete policy head on.
I definitely want a sumo where, like, at our nationals, like every division is filled with athletes. I do want us to get together as women and femmes in sumo, and we do have to do some sort of campaign or something to get junior girls okay, and also to get other women okay with celebrating not being 100 pounds. It's also a sumo where there's resources for trans folks and folks who need help with their names, so that they're not dead named on their passport or dead named in competition. And I want all of us as members of the sumo community to have knowledge on, like, for us not to be repeating the transphobic tropes of, like, trans women in sports. So we see a lot of testing and stuff come up.
Specifically what
like
kind of
hormone testing and stuff. And a lot of people don't know that, like, testing and stuff in sports, how anti-Black that is. There's also a thing that does happen with Black cis women, is that we can be good, but like people will be like, oh no, she's not a woman.
I think I know what you're getting at now. Yeah. Because there were issues, I remember, from several years ago, where it was like this Black woman, they seem too manly. They must be a man pretending to be a woman or whatever.
Yeah. And people still do that to Black athletes, right? They'll be like, oh, it's not that you're smart, as a Black athlete, or that you work really hard. It's just that it's natural for you.
Yeah.
And that's wild because we're all practicing. And then the terrible things that people repeat, like the life for trans women and trans men is so hard. Like somebody would be like, oh, I want a competitive edge, so I'm gonna live the hardest life there ever is to live.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna and I'm gonna and I'm gonna fight these women, and I'm gonna trick them, and I'm gonna beat them, and I'm gonna win a gold medal, and then I'm gonna take my mask off like Scooby-Doo and be like, ha ha ha.
Upending their entire lives so that they can, get like a medal, not even like a cash prize or anything, because we don't got that shit in sumo.
We ain't got nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that glory's gonna be mine.
That part.
Yeah, and this niche sport, it's just so ridiculous.
And then it's like, I want sumo to be in the Olympics, and it might not happen when I'm I'm in my fighting age or whatever, but like I'm gonna be doing nationals until I can't do nationals no more. And maybe I will qualify and be in the Olympics. But little things that can be done now is that the Olympics does have a policy that honors trans athletes. And our policy as USSF is not in alignment with that. And I think we're copying the International Sumo Federation, and that one isn't in alignment with it. But that's Gucci, because I can help. I'm down to help with that, because I do feel like it's messed up that like we can provide these environments for trans folks to participate, but it's like, oh, we have a competition coming up, you can't do that. Yeah. But you can, come and help. Like, that's bullshit.
You did mention to me the other day how you had gotten a hold of the trans athletes policy for the USSF and how just draconian it sounds and how invasive it is. Yeah. Do you mind speaking a little bit more about that?
For sure. The older policy, it was very much targeted a lot towards trans women. It talked about just some pretty terrible stuff as far as the need for private parts to be removed, all types of stuff that we know now is like, in the playbook of keeping trans women not to be athletes.
Of excluding them. Yeah.
Very much excluding them. And this would be for participating in competitions. And then too, you have to email the board all this medical information, and it wouldn't be in a secure way. Like right now, right? If you email
like without encryption.
Yeah, without encryption. Because if you email the USSF president, like email now, we all have access to it, or we'll have access to it as the board. So there's no type of discretion in that. And then we all have to vote on it as a board. We can bring you in as a trans person for questioning, and just like that being terrible, we bring your coach in for questioning. And then so I asked about that policy, and then I received an updated policy, and that updated policy is troubling some more. The new updated policy has a line about it on if I'm a parent and I suspect that my child lost to a trans kid, that I can single out that trans kid and demand the medical records of this child who's not mine.
Like whether they're trans or not.
So there's that, and then there's also like this just unilateral control or access that I, as a USSF board member, have to your doctor. And that's just like, that's way too much. That's too much. And that's not in alignment with honoring trans folks at all, or honoring trans athletes. And so I'm really lucky. A friend of mine, AT, who does a lot of organizing in honoring trans athletes. I've been working with them to identify what type of ways can our policy work to be able to honor and show up for trans athletes, and also like, you know, trans athletes competing in competition, and then too, like making this a part of our road to the Olympics. People want that. We should have that, but also like, you know, that's not us. For me, living the values of sumo, if if trans folks aren't being honored that way.
Yeah, you had mentioned that the policy that's in place currently is even more restrictive than it is for the Olympic athletes, and
Yeah,
that it should at least, like the USSF policy should at least mirror that, but
yeah,
that the goal is to have it be even better than that,
yeah,
even better
yeah.
than it is for the Olympics.
Heck yeah. And also, you know, people will be like, well, you know, you got to do this, you got to do that. Okay, well then let's do that. Like, if our policy here in the U.S. is copying the policy of the IFS or International Sumo Federation, okay, cool. Well then, like, let's be a part of the many countries organizing to make sure that we have a better policy. One, you know, that's one that's better than the Olympics even. And another thing that I want to see in like a sumo in the future, I want to see women athletes in sumo get the fucking respect we deserve. Kelly,
Mhm.
Kelly Ann, Kelly Ann is number 2 in the world, and motherfuckers don't put enough respect on my sister's name. And the people that she goes up against are hard. Women sumo is hard, but people
Or
try to act like we're just skipping in. Okay,
or
like I
how
love you,
nobody shows
sis.
up to actually
Mm,
watch until like men's heavyweight or light heavy or whatever,
you
you
better
know.
say, and
They'll have
you
the
better
women's
say it.
sumo first, and there's like nobody sitting there watching, and they're not expected to. Or they don't even like advertise it in a way that centers the women athletes. They just show.
The fucking posters for these things, you know,
Hmm.
and specifically Andrew Thorne's U.S. Open posters. When has a woman, when have 2 women competing ever been on the front of those shits?
Hmm.
And you know, when we promote things like that being important, and when men are like, why aren't there more women, like, you know, you lifted up the question, why aren't there more women in sumo? People really thinking about that question before they say it aloud, and they ask another woman who, you don't have no idea the hoops that we are going through in our family. Like, even in my family, they're like, oh Chris, you're so rough, and I'm just like, damn, what the, am I supposed to be a virgin sunflower in a glass case?
We all get it.
Yeah,
You're either too much or not enough, you
yeah.
know?
And no matter what harm you experience, it's still gonna be your fault. And
Hmm.
it's just like, so those are the type of things I think are really important for sumo. And you know, I want more clubs. You know, I want more clubs. I want the federation. I want us using our platform to get more money and more membership to the individual clubs. Cause I feel you, you know, passion projects are really important,
And
but
expensive.
also, yeah, that part. Like, people have to live, and people are given a lot to
Mhm.
be able to support and show up for their teams, invest in their teams to be able to win. And also something like, you know, our club here in San Diego, we make a commitment that we're gonna annually go on the pilgrimage to the Japanese prison camp Manzanar, because we want people to understand why there isn't more sumo in the United States, and how terrible the lives were for Japanese folks who came back from those prison camps, and how
Yeah.
important it was to really make sure Japanese culture in any iteration was being shown or shared.
The people in
Yeah,
Hawaii who had to bury their mawashis and their kesho mawashis,
Oh,
you know,
Their trophies and medals.
yeah, bury it in the
Oh.
ground and never think about it again because they were so afraid of being persecuted for being Japanese. They had been in
Yeah.
Hawaii for generations. This was their heritage, and they just had to give it all up. You
Yeah.
know, and things like that have
Yeah.
happened in California too, all up and down the
Yep.
West Coast, actually.
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
Jacks was saying that like it wasn't really until like the 60s and the 70s that, you know, Japanese, like the descendants of these Japanese people that had to bury, you know, all of their sumo regalia were starting to say, you know what, maybe we should start trying this again, you know.
Yeah.
And when they did, that's kind of like what started the whole thing, you know, with US amateur sumo. It was Ernie Hunt.
And how like cops would come through and like break shit up. Like the law enforcement was being charged with, even after folks were out of the concentration camps, breaking up times when they were together practicing martial arts. And
Yeah.
like I think seeing like kind of like another thing, seeing like you know, sumo coaches and leaders like, you know, JJ, and also like you, Matt and Sabrina, and you know, me too, the way in which we love our communities, and we take that time to really not only plant the seeds of sumo, but really to water those seeds. Like having our clubs and other clubs doing what we're doing, getting connected with the school board, getting connected, like so that we can have resources to be able to get students excited about doing this sport, and also getting us in front of them so that they can see like, oh, bet, like I can be, you know, my body is okay. The people who I love, that is okay. Like these are adults, you know, appropriate relationships. Like this is a life that I can have.
That's something that Matt's been talking about since he started sumo is, you know, how to get more youth involved, and specifically like, you know, your goals with the youth on the res and everything, and having that same positive experience that you had when you started sumo.
Yeah, I really wanted to bring it back because, you know, sumo taught me more discipline, you know, with myself. It gave me like, you know, mental fortitude. I have CPTSD, you know, there was, whenever I quit drinking, I had a really hard time even just going out in public. You know, I just my anxiety was just so bad. But, you know, through sumo, I was able to, you know, take more control over my body, take more control over my life. And to, you know, when they say do your style of sumo, you know, and that's to kind of like impose your style of sumo, you know, on your opponents. I had to impose my style of sumo on my daily life just so that I could function and live, you know. And it helped, you know, because, you know, and I was going to therapy at the time. And, you know, my therapist was saying, you know, if you're facing, you know, a challenge in your life, just kind of mentally get down in your shikiri position, you know, put your fist down and say Hakkeyoi and tackle that shit. And so I still take that with me. Even if it's like at work and I have a shitty phone call, before I hit call, I'm just like Hakkeyoi. And then
Hell yeah.
Yes. And it is like that. It's like a confidence, like the confidence in the type of sumo I have in the dojo, and then being able to be like, yo, you know, my life is like it is because I'm doing my sumo in my life. And it's okay that if it doesn't look like anyone else's.
Yes.
Yeah, like trusting yourself with that. But
and representation matters too, you know, like queer kids are going to want to see queer sumotori, and that's going to get them interested in sumo. Black kids, if they see black sumotori, that's going to get them interested in it. Indigenous kids, fucking women, you know, like we've been talking about.
And I think too, it's like it just like circling back again about, you know, this is the community that we're building. And folks like Kelly Knighting, they don't get it. And also I'll argue that they never did get it if there's somebody participating in this type of stuff, you know? And yeah, and you know, good riddance.
We hope you enjoyed this window into the world of LGBTQIA+ sumotori. Don't forget to catch our upcoming coverage of the Nagoya Basho. Until then,
You can find us on all social media, the Instagrams and the Facebooks and the Twitters and the whatnots and the hoo-has. If you like this episode, make sure to give it a 5-star rating because it helps other people find it and enjoy it themselves. And don't forget, we do have 2 online stores, one on Redbubble and one on TeePublic. Just go there and search for Sumo Punx. Of course, that's Punx with an X.
For extra sex.
And did we cover all the last part of the episode stuff?
Yeah, so like give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to this on.
I said that already.
Oh, well then if you're on the YouTubes, then like and subscribe.
And until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Whoa, did we hit the same note?
I think we did.